everyone, and welcome to today's Future of Process webinar, which is being Artificial Intelligence for Process Risk and Regulatory Compliance Management. The Future of Process webinars are an initiative that the ABPMP Australia chapter has developed with an aim to supporting the advancement of the practice of business process management, as well as to support development and advancement of skills and competencies for professionals who work in the BPM sphere.
Okay, so just before getting into the specific product use cases for AI within process risk and regulatory management that we've already integrated into the application, are going to show some live demos of how AI can be leveraged within the realm of BPM. As you know, it's evolving very quickly, and we continue to add new capabilities at a very rapid rate. So first of all, Forbes says 4 in 5 companies deem AI to be the top priority of their business strategy, meaning, right, that's at that C level where your CEO might be saying use AI, but it's a very broad statement, and where and how and within the confines of the rules and regulations is always a challenge. 65% of companies are using AI already internally, while 74% are in the testing phase, says Deloitte. 25% of companies are adopting AI because of labor shortages, meaning it's not a question of replacing humans, but being able to be more productive with the people that you have today and leveraging the knowledge of AI to make all your workers more skilled. And really important stat is that companies that adopt AI will be 10x more effective and will hold 2x as much market share by 2025. So that's a very aggressive statement, considering 2025 is next year. But I think it puts reality of the importance of integrating AI into and across your business. And in this case, obviously, within your own roles, within business process management, specifically for today. Just a couple of other key analytics here from Gartner, whereby from before 2023 to 2023, you see growth in AI products is 2 times. In terms of commitment to AI investments in 2024, that was at a 92%. So very, very high. So meaning if your team or group is not using AI within your actual operations, you're falling behind. And as we see, there's a very steep incline in terms of investments for forecasting for the future. And the reality is, someone who's working in this space and moves at such a rapid pace, anyone who's starting now is way behind, in essence, because the rate at which you can adopt the new capabilities, and you should be partnering with software firms that are embedding AI throughout their own technology stacks, because so you don't have to do it yourself within your organization, meaning you should be doing it for your purposes, for your core business needs, meaning what do you offer, what differentiates you? Yes, you should incorporate AI within if it provides a unique offering. But within the surrounding solutions for your core operations and supporting operations that aren't unique, then you should be leveraging your partners and their technologies to incorporate AI throughout. And if they're not, then you should be looking for new partners. So where interfacing really falls and where we're going to be focusing today is really at the core in that very complex knowledge layer, right? That's where AI can bring the most value, but also is the most challenging, because that's where you have the people knowledge, the skill sets, the task specific, the scenario-based information that is often your highest skilled employees, and often with the baby boomers exiting, is leaving organizations at a rapid rate, and obviously not trickling down into the new generation, and they learn at a whole different style and rate. And in terms of the tools that they're using, as you know, they grew up on a TikTok era. So it's got to be quick, short, to the point, easy, accessible. And that is really what we're going to be focusing on today. Within the solution that we're going to be looking at in terms of the different models that are a part of today's use cases that we've integrated within our solution is YOLO, Paddle OCR, YOLO Pose, Spacey, as well as OpenAI, which is obviously ChatGPT, right, which is a large language model, but also OpenAI's embedding model, which has to do with semantic indexation, and that relates to semantic search, but we'll talk about that more later. So that's all contained within today's session, but note we've also worked with and integrated use cases with Bedrock from AWS or Llama from Facebook and Google Gemini, and also using Amazon tied in for text embedding similar to OpenAI. So why I'm saying that, if you do have specific use cases related to not wanting to, as an example, use an LLM, meaning a SaaS, sending any of your data externally, there are options that you can keep the data directly in your cloud. Note that all these models that are executing some of the use cases are self-contained, meaning they're sitting directly within our servers and have been fully integrated as well, meaning your data isn't going anywhere externally. But also note that, right, within GPT Enterprise, your data is protected. What I mean by that is that they cannot store and keep it, nor do they use it for training. But I also know a lot of organizations may or may not trust what they're saying. But of course, you need to, at the end of the day, trust your partners. So choose wisely and make decisions against your security policies on what data you're willing to share. So today, in terms of the AA model types that we're actually going to be touching on, we're looking into computer vision, NLP, generative AI, retrieval, RAG, vector search, and also touch on augmented reality as well. First, we're going to be starting on the left side, which really focuses on creating data, generating data, migrating data, really digitalizing the data. And then on the right side has more to do with improving the data. And when I'm saying data, I mean, obviously in this case, processes, documents, risks, regulations, this type of content for today's session. And this has everything to do with accessing the information quickly, different ways to access it, recommendations for improvement. So once you have content. So let's get into some of the more granular details here, starting with computer vision, which is really shape detection. So in our use case for today that we're going to be covering, it relates to two things. One, when we're talking about processing images of processes, whether those be third-party tools you've used, just generic like mapping products like a Lucid or a Visio or a Miro, like just basic mapping tools, not BPM products, or if you're doing a whiteboard, whether that be a digital whiteboard through Teams, which is available if you're not aware, or a traditional whiteboard with sticky notes and using a marker, we can process those things and bring them directly into digital format, meaning fragmenting the data. The other thing, though, too, is we'll be looking at today is parsing videos. So, recording screenshots of how to create an account in SAP, or how to log an event in Trax, which is an MRO as an example. So once you've done screen captures, or if you had a Teams meeting, being able to automatically process those videos of the workshops that you're running, whether it be internally or with your customers. The other part of computer vision, this is where we're talking about the AI OCR. So OCR, right, is optical character recognition. It's just the next new generation of OCR, relates to AI, which is the ability, right, to extract handwritten text and really digitalize it into call it digital text in terms of real characters. obviously. And again, the higher the quality your handwriting, obviously the higher the quality output. But at the end of the day, the idea here is it has intelligence to understand based on the semantics of what you've written, what you were trying to write. Additionally, there's error detection when we're talking about processes. So transitions, right? If you're talking BPMN. Now, this is actually much more complex than it seems because of the models on the market in terms of the quality of detection quality. As you know, transitions can cross each other. They have loopbacks. You might have very complex processes. So what we've done is we've taken a model that is designed for endpoint, for such as facial recognition or endpoints within body joints, as you see on the right-hand side. So it's the concept of that model is it's able to locate key points, and then through retraining these models specifically against process-related data, we're able to actually extract the transitions and their directions quite accurately in terms of rebuilding your images into real processes. So let's do our first small little demo on some of these use cases, starting with processing some third-party images. So here you see I have Glyphy, I have Lucid, Miro, Visio, whiteboard images, a whole lot of them. I'm going to upload them. And as it's uploading it, it's not only just uploading a physical file, it's actually running the model against each of these images to extract those transitions, the shapes, the name of the shapes, as well as any of the text that was found on the map outside of the shape. And based on its location, meaning proximity to a transition, like a gateway, right? You might have done a decision point, yes, no. So that yes, no is migrated and tied with the specific transition of the decision. What I mean by that, it's not limited to directly in the shape, but also surrounding text that you might have marked by hand, or in, as you know, you can control people. So let's select all of them very quickly. And immediately you'll see all these processes have been already parsed. So as I mentioned earlier, you see it's actually extracting the text surrounding the different shapes. So extracted the text close to the transitions. Here's a gateway, yes, no path, as well as, you know, understanding the difference between a task, a start endpoint, and a gateway. And from here, it's as easy as I could. And by the way, this, just to show you, is it's turned it into real data. You see start, receive request form, review the request form. So this is real data, as well as if there were any, in this case, there weren't, associations, which I'll show you in the next example. And from here, I could just review it and export it. No, you can skip this step and actually mass upload all these at once. But this allows to highlight for you to understand what's actually happening behind the scenes. Additionally, in this case, we have a swim lane. So beyond the other example, we also can see now roles. So it's extracted the lane names into specific roles that will now be automatically assigned to the activities. So in this case, we see there's actually an org unit that was added that I can click on any to highlight. Note, it's not going to duplicate the same role. It's going to just keep relinking the same role multiple times, as well as if it already exists in the database, it'll reuse that role. But it's also made that relationship. So you see role to task, executive to D2. So if we look here at task 4, we can see it's the director. And again, as easy as exporting it and making these all digital processes. So I'll just flip through quickly the other. You see Miro, same concept, where in this case, they're not straight lines. Visio, which you are all aware of, but you may not have the original source of your Visios, which we can process. But what if it was a consultant that did it and injected an image, or you have a PDF of it? You don't have the original source. source of the file. And here you see again, even a handwritten sticky note process. So very, very powerful. Let's go to the ones that I just actually imported. So just refresh the tree here. Since I sent 2 of them, we can quickly see here that down at the bottom, we have those same processes. Here's that Glyphy as an example image, as well as the Lucid chart swimlane, which it's generating automatically that with the specific roles, director, manager, executive. So you see it's not only generated and built the entire process, but also the relationships to the specific roles, the executive. And as I mentioned earlier, if I'm on the task, that is a real now object, meaning not just an attribute. If I click on it, I see that it's actually linked to multiple different tasks, all with that within that Lucid process that we just brought in. So it was reused. Note 2 here, it's actually can give me an impact recommendation of other areas this role should actually be linked within the repository. This has to do with AI as well, but we'll come back to that use case afterwards, where the system could actually give you insight in terms of where you should be assigning these things. The next one, which we'll cover, is the import of an actual video. So converting a video into a process. If I go here and right click, we have here the concept of parse video, which I downloaded one just before the session here from YouTube, which talks about how to create a GL account in SAP. And let me just pull up the specific video so you can see what it was. Sorry about that. Videos. While it's just processing the video real time, you can see here that this was a standard video that's not sure, Dan, are you able to hear the sound of the video on your end?
Not able to hear the sound.
No, okay. No, there's an option in Teams. So anyhow, it's someone who did write a voice recording of explaining how to create a GL account in SAP step by step, with then screen actually running through SAP and actually executing those tasks. So again, just something I found on YouTube. And very quickly, here you see create general ledger in SAP is ready. The process was already generated. If I click to it, you see it's actually generated an end-to-end process to explain the transaction codes, enter the general ledger details, specify the account group, enter the code control data, configure line item display, so on and so forth. And on each of those tasks actually provided a step-by-step description and work instruction, as well as can inject screenshot images directly out of your videos. So think of running workshops are now just people taking recordings of what they do, and actually then the system building those content out. So you see the process includes the understanding different transaction codes, FS00, FSPO, FSS00, and their application at various levels, yada, yada, yada. So what's really cool too is that not only are we able to extract transcript, but we're actually able to improve the quality of the transcript by improving the text of what the individual actually put in their transcript. So it's really built out the entire step-by-step work instruction from the video with all the supporting content. The next one related to this use case is rule fragmentation. Actually, sorry, let's jump back to our slide deck, because that would be the next section, which has to do with NLP. So before diving into the presentation, let me just give a bit of background on data semantics and natural language processing. So in this case, what we're doing here is we're not just extracting text out of your documents to generate processes. We're analyzing all the data semantics of that content. What does that mean? It means that it's not just pulling out a word, it's pulling out an understanding of where that word exists as per the sentence that it's utilized in. Right? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Is it a pronoun? And all the relationships to the surrounding words. The other thing that it's doing is how it relates to other areas within the actual content. What that means is, as we saw earlier, as simple as role to task, well, there's much more complex relationships, right? It could be a regulation to a role and a regulation to a task, and then linked to a risk and a control that mitigates that risk. So depending on how you've built out your documents, it could actually analyze the relationships based on the structure of the content of your text. So let's go into now doing the different use cases. First one, just to here, what I'll do is I'll create a, let's go a rule import set here as an example, just create a new one. And what I'll do is parse regulations. So yes, after we'll get into automatic generation, but right now for NLP, we're actually going to parse automatically a regulatory document, which everyone who works in regulatory management, right? Regulations are changing constantly. If you're working in an international climate, these regulations are pronounced in terms of per region, per state, per country, and then based on industry specifics as well, right? FAA, Transport Canada for aviation, FDA, EASA for aviation, I could go on. And then you have the other ones related to quality and compliance, which maybe is more aligned with this team. So let's pull up one that is related directly to this group. So if I go into regulations, let's go with, let's say, AS 9001D, which is the equivalent of ISO 9000 for aviation. So now you can either put in your own custom prompts, or we have pre-prompts based on certain regulations that we add for people just to save time. And as I run this fragmentation of that entire doc into the entire structure of that regulation, while that one's actually executing, what I'll do in parallel is walk you through parsing a document more manually. That one's running all automatically, so you don't really see what's happening in the background. So let's go back to the parser to actually show you one fragmenting manually. And in this case, we'll do an SOP instead, which, as you see, this SOP, standard operating procedure, right, if you're not aware, is just a doc received standard document that describes the process and procedures and work instructions of an audit. So now the first thing I want to show you here is that you can build templates aligned with certain content that can be smarter, right? Better trained to process the content in a higher quality. So in this case, you see I have an SOP template. I don't actually need to build a new template, which we can do if we have time. But automatically, you see with one click, it's actually brought in and fragmented all the data within this document. This is a sub-process. This is a role, control name, sub-process name, task name, role name. And I could also apply some layers above. Here, if I do risk detection, just to show you I want to do it on the fly, you see it's tagged now the risk and left out the risk to dot to be incorporated. And as it's doing this, it's actually building out my repository of risks, controls, my entire glossary. You see where I could click on anything and it brings me directly to that section. And within the glossary, you could see it's actually a table. So our system supports Excel spreadsheets that you can tag right on the fly based on any type of Excel spreadsheet and fragment all the data, but not only fragment it in an intelligent way, but also build up all of its relationships. If you're talking about Excel like this, it would be term to description, but it could have been right risk to control to task name, description of the control, likelihood of the control, so on and so forth. Meaning, if I look at the associations here, you see it's the process, the task, the role, meaning all of those additional objects linked automatically. Another thing I just want to highlight to show you on the fly, instead of running it up front, you have the ability to train with your own content. What I mean by that is, you see, I actually want to go through all the text based on our roles and our assets and our rules and regulations. And as I'm doing this, you see it's highlighting and extracting all the roles. But now, as we were talking about earlier, semantic NLP, right, is meaning based on the sentence, it's going to assign the roles different levels of responsibility, meaning we use RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed, as well as its extensions, right, like RASCI, the supportive, or RASCI VS, meaning verify and signatory. What it's doing is it's extracting them all and building out an entire process. And here we have asset name, where you see it's extracted SAP. Again, from here, I could just simply export this content and it'll actually build out the entire digital process into the repository. If I go back to the repository and go down here to process set that was just generated, we can see here it's built out the entire list of processes and activities, but it's built out, you see, it's really a hierarchy structure with processes and sub-processes. And all of this information you can see is linked to roles, descriptions, tasks, rules, controls. You see controls, risks, so on and so forth, assets. But more importantly is, right, it's built out the entire process in flowchart form, in swimlane, excuse me, and as well as its sub-processes and activities and all the related descriptions at every level, as well as built out the entire RACI matrix of that whole process in one single view that is fully clickable, and my whole table of contents, which is also all navigatable and extractable. So now if we just go back to the AS 9001, which was running in the background. Oh, sorry, it was here running. So you see here, AI rule generation creation complete, which was the parsing of AS 9000. And right, this you guys should all be pretty familiar with. If you know any ISO, you've right, 04 is always context of the organization, which in there you have understanding the organization as context. But normally you're stuck in terms of just managing that as an entire paragraph, like in your spreadsheet, right? Or you need to manually do it. What it's done is it's fragmented out the specific clauses, the requirements that you need to adhere to. That's where it's very powerful, because in our system now you can align the requirement, the specific requirement, with its relationships to ensure, right, that we have a policy in place to meet this requirement. We have a process in place to meet this requirement, instead of just an overarching general paragraph. So it's built out the entire set of all the sections, but broken them down. You see, and here's a good one, leadership and commitment. There's actually A to J in terms of requirements you must adhere to. Anyone who's worked on this, right? It's not enough just to link a top level item for your auditors. And what's really cool with our application, now getting into that AI recommendation again, I could actually use impact recommendations to tell me where, meaning which processes, which procedures, which controls are impacted by this requirement. So I'm assessing them all real time at the same time to give me recommendations of relationships, and can directly click and assign it from here without even going anywhere. Or I can download all these recommendations. So again, that's using AI. That's part of the second phase of, once the data is in there, the system could help you with all your analysis work and recommendations on a wide scale, and obviously fast track a lot of that effort. A good example, if you said update account in the ERP, well, the system knows the ERP is SAP and you didn't link SAP or the specific module within SAP. So very, very powerful on the NLP side. There are more use cases, but for sake of time, we're going to keep moving on because we have many to cover. The next one we're going to touch on, we won't be able to do all of them because there's a lot in generative AI. So we'll do a couple of use cases. This is really the ability to create any data on the fly from scratch based on giving it use cases and descriptions. We have a bunch here, but we're only going to cover a handful for today's session. So here, if we go back to the process module and just right-click generate process, we can, first of all, what's very powerful, this system, it's not limited to create a process. You can automatically generate an entire framework, like the process classification framework, but or ETOM. You can generate full frameworks, whether they're in industry, call it best practice standards, or if they're specific to your organization and industry and there is no best practice standard, it can actually make recommendations and build your entire framework for you. So let's say I have one there, SAP accounts payable process, but it could be very much more specific. Let's say aircraft defect. And I just say generate access for Australia. Using AMOS MRO. So let's just mention the more specific you are, obviously, the more descriptive or points you want to include. Well, by the way, a very good use case for incorporating bullets are those requirements that we talked about earlier. You could actually incorporate them into make sure my process meets these 5 criteria for incident management, and it'll bake the tasks and controls in there automatically for you. So you don't need to waste your time building the entire process, nor actually incorporating all this information. So I have here my AI process already generated, which you can see here. I did a quick short one, which has defect identify, report the defect, schedule maintenance. There's actually a defect sub-process defined where the initial defect assessment, if it's critical, immediate rectification, not critical, schedule rectification, rectification process. There's another sub-process within there. So you see it's defined the gateways, the decision points, sub-processes. Note, I did a very bare-boned one. You don't even see roles. So when you're generating your processes, you have the option to say in our system, include roles, include regulations, include KPIs, layer as much information as you want to be generated in the process. But just for sake of speed today, something very, very light. And again, you see it's generated descriptions and procedures automatically for all my process and step-by-step work instructions, all within seconds. Another one related to generation, which is very cool. What I'm going to do here is actually generate an e-form. So first of all, we can do different things. We can generate Word documents automatically. So as you know, GPT doesn't generate Word docs. It only generates text. But we could do Wikidocs or even a Word doc, because what we're able to do is actually generate and build it into the text. So here I have human resources, create a, I don't know, new employee contract as an example. And then I'll also do another one, which is an e-form, which is electronic form, right? Which is meaning it's actually a smart form. And in this case, say vacation request, something simple, which this is actually using our low-code automation platform, which, right, is not just documentation. It's the ability to turn those process maps into live running processes. But using AI, we can actually automatically generate e-forms. So here now we see both are already done. The vacation request e-form. I pull up a preview here of it, provided I'm signed in. Yeah. So it generated a very simple vacation request. It automatically has my employee name because I'm logged in. So it used a real user section. It built, right, start date and end date of my vacation request. Type of vacation, it built an automatic drop down. So let's say it's paid leave. And then a rich text field, reason for vacation, and right submission button. So this is actually a real form that could trigger a workflow in the background, or of course, just capture data on people submitting requests. The other one that ran was here for the human resources. I said to create a employee contract. Was it this one? Employee handbook. Yeah, company policies, code of conduct, attendance, punctuality, compensation benefits, performance reviews, so on and so forth, health and safety. So this is actually, I'm showing it in PDF, by the way, but that's because we have a preview available for online for all files. Of course, you can always not only preview them online, but in our system note, you can actually edit them directly in Microsoft 365 from our system and save them back, which is very powerful. But today we're just focused on AI. So note, beyond that, we do have it across all modules now with the ability to do this generative AI. So it doesn't matter if it's generating a whole list of risks, legal risks, operational risks, compliance risks. With what's cool is not only will it create all the lists of risks automatically, but also the list of controls. So here I generated a list of, you see, some financial risks. And each of these, currency risk, credit risk, inflation risk, each of these, I go to the details of it, liquidity risk. What's powerful is not only is it generating a list of folders automatically with categorizations, and then a list of risks per, call it categorization grouping. Then on top of it, it's always giving a description, but also monitoring, cause and effect, review and ownership, stakeholders, and mitigation strategies against this risk. So liquidity risk would be maintain adequate cash reserves and arranging backup credit facilities. Moreover, it also generates controls to mitigate that risk. In this case, your liquidity coverage ratio, LCR. Let's go to one other example. Another one. So if we have, say, inflation risk, same concept, you see, mitigation, investing in inflation protected in securities and real assets. Your stakeholders are investors, savers, pensioners. So the value of our system, again, you see, it's building content, it's building value based on your real use case in this area of work. Plus, it's building all the relationships to related content as well. For sake of time, since it's already 10 minutes to the hour, we'll move on. But note, we have many other generative AI capabilities, but we'll have to move on right now. So the next one we're going to use case touch on is against the ability to do what's called vector search, or what really it's a RAG, which meaning it's the ability to search, or in our case, using a chatbot to actually extract relevant information based on questions. So note that obviously it's vectorization of your actual data, but it's your data that we're analyzing and returning in the results, like as if you were talking to ChatGPT. But the difference here is processing your real information, providing summaries, and providing source to that information. But the real power of it, right, is it's, again, incorporates NLP, right, in the first place, because it needs to analyze your actual text. So what I mean by that is, if we go back into this environment, instead of keyword based, if I say, how do I log an incident? So as I search for this, meaning ask the bot, well, what you'll notice here is I asked about an incident, but it's providing me a result against event tracking. Because for you to know, right now I'm in the airline database. It's one of our many industry-specific DBs available. But right there, you see it's doing a summary of that, which is the actual incident management process that it's returning details against with the step-by-step of how to do it. It's just specifically in this airline industry environment, that's referred to the event tracking workflow. And it brings me right to that specific step-by-step procedure of how to do it in Amos, in this case, with all the details of how to do it. And of course, or pull up the actual process map that relates to it, where I can see the step-by-step in, call it process form versus in text form, as well as pulling up the step-by-step procedures from here of how to do it, or actually tracking the actual performance of how we're doing with this specific event tracking process. So the power, right, of the bot, the AI assistant, is that it's analyzing, first of all, the question, because I didn't ask for incident, but it knows that event tracking has to do with incident relationship. It's like asking for magician and returns Harry Houdini. That's the difference in power. Beyond it, of course, bringing data results that are applicable that you may not even ask for. That's the difference between that and what's called Elasticsearch, right? If I searched first of all, I search, how do I do an incident? In Elasticsearch, you see it's more traditional keyword-based searched. So it's quality. See, if I do just incident, it's not bringing in the event tracking process. It's bringing in a whole bunch of other stuff. So just to note, it's bringing in the most highly relevant. So it is here, event tracking, but you see it's way further down in the list. So just note, that's really the difference between the two. We do support full Elasticsearch, but now it's much more powerful with the incorporation of AI. The next quick use case would be around process improvement. So not only about generating processes, but your current processes, meaning people that are not process analysts, could actually, anyone in the company, the system can suggest improvements. So it analyzes your current processes and makes recommendations of how this process could actually be improved. So what's really powerful about this is that not only does it incorporate improvements about things like let's say there should have been a decision point because you had an approved reject, but there was no loop back to go back to, if rejected, to go back, meaning what I call very basic process BPMN type rules. More importantly, it actually provides information like, you see, adding a task for incident analysis. Why? To ensure that the analysis is conducted before proceeding with the incident process. So you see, this is telling me I should actually add a new task to this process to make it a higher quality. Sometimes it says you should add an additional sub-process for let's say effectiveness evaluation. It'll tell you when you should run certain processes or tasks in parallel versus sequentially to actually save time. It tells you certain tasks that should be automated or removed. So you see all of these add tasks for a data validation, add a loopback for review, add a decision gateway to declare aircraft incident to determine if the incident requires further action or can proceed to the next step. This can help in handling diverse scenarios more effectively. So I won't go through all the details, but what's very powerful too, from here you can just hit execute, and whether it be all or some, you don't need to. You can reduce and do as many as you want. Automatically apply those changes and the system will do it for you. Note, if the same thing goes for what's called write improvements, for someone who knows nothing about process mapping, they could just say, add this role to these 5 steps, and it'll automatically do it. Meaning just tell the system in plain English how to build your process, or create a process with these 10 activities. System will build it for you. So just wanted to mention that it's not only is it automated approvals and improvements, but the system could also execute and add them for you. So you see it's already been applied, and these are now available within the process map directly. The next one, use case, we're running out of time here, so going very fast. This we're going to skip because I already showed it, a couple of use cases, right, where we have what's called impact recommendation. Because our system is object-oriented and it has a graph model in terms of all the relationships of all your data, what that allows our system to do is actually make intelligent recommendation based on the content, as well as its attributes, as well as its relationships to other content. And whether that be as simple as, linking a system to all of its relevant tasks, or more complex use cases like a new law or regulation and understanding who's going to be impacted by it. And let's just say the final one, I won't do live here, but really is, you have a little clip here that you can see. For those of you that are more in the manufacturing area, or in maintenance area, or something that has really warehousing, actually, and clinical, another popular use case. What our system can do, because the entire application is built on top of our API and available via these Google Glasses or HoloLens, what it can do, and you can actually walk through the process directly as using AI. When you look at something, it'll recognize what it is and pull up the related process or procedure, the step-by-step, additional help, right? Like diagrams related to that part or that engine, or that, analyzing. As you know, you could actually analyze where there's issues with the product. So very, very powerful. This is actually a reel. That's our system that's being pulled up of the specific tree that you're looking at with this specific in our system, right? You always have their step-by-step procedures. You have images, you have videos. We really promote going digital for incorporating the minimizing the learning curve. But not only can you pull up these things interactively directly on a Google Glass and on a HoloLens, and by the way, I do have it here just to show you. It really is something that we do. Is that you can incorporate this in the power of analyzing what you're actually looking at, right? Not only putting the side by side, but very powerful in terms of the use cases of where you could be using this in the next generation. So I'll wrap it up here, Dan, and hand it back off to you. If there's any questions that came up that I can handle right now, Dan?
Yeah, I do have one question for you. Can we convert flowchart process maps, which are not based on BPM flowchart symbols, like IDEF, EPC, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my example, you see I was able to convert like even sticky notes. Doesn't have to be BPMN at all. And whether that be in the original form or in our system, you do not need to go to BPMN. That's just what I've been showing. But note, you could actually have your own custom shapes or any shapes. So your end users could have simplified views of their data. This is actually something we recommend, right? For those of the people who don't know our system, you have the ability to auto-translate all of the data into multi-lang, including right to left for Arabic, Chinese characters. You have the ability to localize any process and then compare it, right, based on product, when you're localizing product, location, all this type of stuff. And then again, compare it and sync changes across it. But you also have what's called simplified views for end users that are just very basic views, but what's called the happy path, and it'll show a simplified map even. They don't need all paths to be highlighted at once, beyond you setting up your own notations.
So we are running a little bit short on time, so we'll stop there. Once again, I want to thank Scott Armstrong for his excellent demonstration of artificial intelligence for process risk, regulatory compliance management. Just so you know, Interfacing offers a digital twin software solution that documents, analyzes, improves, digitizes, and monitors your business processes. Interfacing's leading-edge AI process improvement tool provides insights into actionable process improvements to increase efficiency, remove redundancy, and eliminate manual tasks and improve quality. More information on our enterprise process suites are available at interfacing.com and sales@interfacing.com if you'd like to inquire. If you prefer a live demonstration, please go to interfacing.com, book a demo to submit your request. Additionally, we'd love for you to join our Interfacing community, where you can complete a free BPM 2.0 certification and EPC modeler training program as well. We would like to thank ABPMP. Would actually like you to fill out it's a short survey. Help them by filling out their survey. As a reminder, I just want to make a note that sharing or showing recorded screenshots or video of Enterprise Process Center's IP is not permitted without the express permission from ABPMP and Interfacing Technologies Corporation. Thank you. Take care, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.